Hello, everyone. Cyber here. I apologize in advance. Uh, we have been away from video content making for a while, but I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with everyone about this topic, and I thought it would be a good introduction into me making videos again. And to be honest, a lot of people are talking about it, and I wanted to give my thoughts on basically the Sony PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, before we get too far into this, I want to apologize. First and foremost, I'm currently sick. I sound very nasally. I am aware. I apologize. Also, I worked so hard and I made a script and everything for this video. And no matter how many times I sat down and edited it and rewrote it and did everything, it sounded so boring and not like coming directly from Cyber himself. So for this video, we're not going scripted at all. We're just gonna throw out the 3 hours that I spent on that script. It's okay. It's okay. Not a waste of my time at all. So this will this will be a little all over the place. I'll be stammering a little bit while I get back into the flow of kind of talking about my thoughts and opinions on the topic. But for those who don't know, a couple of days ago, Sony had unveiled the PlayStation 5 Pro, which, for those who don't know, has probably been the worst kept secret in video game history, minus maybe the Switch. No, well, the Switch, we didn't really know what it was going to look like until like a couple months before launch, but I don't know. It's been talked about for almost the last year. We had heard Microsoft come out and announce that they weren't going to be releasing a mid-generation console. And we all kind of just assumed that Sony wasn't as well, and then rumors started coming out that they were going to be doing a PS5 Pro, sort of like the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X from last generation, which weren't my favorite consoles. They were cool looking, but what they kind of set as a precedent, I wasn't a super big fan of. But essentially leading up to this week, it was kind of confirmed that this was going to be happening, and then Sony took the lid off of the jar on Tuesday, and they basically announced the PlayStation 5 Pro. And I have to say, it's it's a gaming console, but it's not one I'm going to be buying. Now, before we touch that cat, we're going to touch a different cat with a conversation about Sony's accessories that they've been launching for the last couple of months and years, between the PlayStation Portal, the PSVR 2, some of their headphones that they've been launching for the PS5 with their, I forget what they call it. It's like the PlayStation Link system, where it's like directly communicates with the headset and you don't need to do like dongles or whatever. Sony's been overall just releasing really expensive tech, and they're kind of taking a book out of like Apple and Sony's play, with just let's go and overcharge the customers for what we're essentially offering. And that really comes into play with this. The PlayStation 5 Pro will be $700, will not come with a stand for verticalness, despite the fact that they've been showing off the console with it standing vertically this entire fucking time that they've been marketing this. Granted, yeah, it's only been like 2 or 3 days now, but they have been marketing this for 3 or 4 days now, and every single time I have never once seen it laid down horizontally. It's always been vertically, which is setting a precedent for misinformation, because I would assume now that it would come with a vertical stand, and it's not. But it's also not going to be including a disk drive. And it's frustrating as a console gamer that, yeah, I buy digital content, but I still buy physical media first and foremost, and not seeing a pro console come with a disk drive is really upsetting. Now, Sony did say in their announcement video that they were going to be making ray tracing better, which a lot of gamers not even really like super into, because apparently we all just play, on performance modes. I guess during their I keep wanting to call it like a press conference, but it was really more of just an unveiling. They said that like almost 3/4 of gamers are choosing performance mode because they want the higher frame rates over like the visual quality. And I can't really say that I'm surprised. As a community, we've gone from enjoying a game just because it's a fun game to play to wanting and expecting games to perform at a certain level. And while I personally distaste that, and I think it's wrong, we should enjoy games if they're a fun game to play, not because, it's hitting 60 FPS. To a certain degree, I understand and I respect the community as a whole for wanting more for what we're putting out, because gaming's gotten expensive. You've gotten, ever since the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and the GameCube, the price of games has gone up. If you're on Nintendo's side, they're still charging some games for 60, some for 70. But from Microsoft, all of their games are $70. PlayStation, they'll do some $40 games, but like they're big AAA games that they do. Their AAA like quality games that they do are $70 now. And if you're spending that kind of money on a video game, you want it to not only be a good game, because we've seen, like with Concord, it was not a good game for $40. It was a horrible game, but you also want it to perform nicely. You don't want to have to worry about a whole bunch of like performance issues going on. Now, that being said, though, I have to say that how this is kind of getting handled is really in poor taste, in part because of, really, I'm going to be honest, I don't think we needed this. Part of the reason why Microsoft and Sony had gone and released the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro was when the Xbox One and the PS4 originally launched in 2013. They were extremely underpowered consoles. Both console makers had basically made their consoles less powerful to meet a certain agenda. And for Sony, that was, for the PS3, they lost so much money on them that they could not afford to take a risk with the PS4. If they tried to do that again, we probably would have seen Sony go bankrupt. Granted, the PS4 sold gangbusters. It sold so well. But that's with hindsight 2020. Going back to 2013 and thinking about, okay, we need to try and recoup some of the money we lost, obviously makes sense that they didn't want to make a super powerful console that would have cost them a lot of money and just expected gamers just to go out and buy it. For Xbox, though, they were bundling in for the first fucking year and a half, 2 years. They were bundling in a fucking Kinect that nobody wanted, that gamers hated, and really didn't serve a fucking purpose. So they had to skimp on the tech specs of the console to meet the price point that they were trying to hit, which was still expensive. But those mid-generation consoles that we got helped buy us time until the launch of the Xbox Series consoles and the PlayStation 5. Now going And jumping forward to 2024, though, it's a different story. Yes. Can you get better gaming specs on a PC? Yes. Part of the reason why people game on console is not because they want the latest and greatest gaming experience. Consoles are not upgradable. Granted, you can go and get things like, PlayStation 5 has got the whole thing going on with SSDs. Xbox has the interchangeable memory cards that you can put into the console now. So you can kind of upgrade the storage or add more storage, but for the most part, consoles are not upgradable. We, as console gamers, go and buy consoles when we want something that's maybe not cheaper than a PC, but, a good bang for the buck, something that plays well on a TV, because I still think that if you're wanting a gaming experience on a TV, consoles still are a 10 out of 10 versus PCs are still dog shit at. But then, you just want something that you don't ever have to worry about it breaking. Consoles very rarely have issues. Windows, sometimes those Windows PCs can get a bad rap because people just automatically assume that they're always riddled with bugs. It's not always, but I would say probably as a super big PC gamer, it's probably, 1 out of 5 times you've got an issue that you have to go and diagnose or, download a patch or whatever. But when you come into console gaming and you see Sony going out and essentially getting cocky, they know that Microsoft isn't going to be doing this. Microsoft is not being super competitive with them right now. They're looking at a market that they think that they can get away with whatever they want. And this plays into another YouTuber that I watch. His name's Adam Korlick. He kind of put this idea in my head that every 3 console generations, a console maker will fuck up. And a good example is with Sony, because Sony's been around now for over almost 3 decades. The PlayStation 1 sold very well. First console that they had ever done sold amazing. PlayStation 2 sold even more. Super huge successful. But the problem was that they were starting to get cocky because they saw that they had 2 previously well-performing consoles that they could just go and say, okay, let's go balls to the wall and just give everyone everything that they want. And then the PS3 failed horribly. So now they have to start over with the PS4. They have to take it easy. They have to be careful. They don't want to rock the boat. PS5 comes around. They're full-on confident that they can sell whatever the fuck they want, and people will just eat it up because of how many PS4 sold, how well the PS5 is doing, how little competition that they have. And I guarantee you, the PS6, which is a weird thing to say, the PlayStation 6, when that comes out, will not sell as well, because they're going to fuck up in some area, and people are either going to say, no, we don't want to do that, we're going to go to Xbox, or we're going to go to Nintendo, which I think is gearing up for being a really good competitor to both Sony and Microsoft with the Switch 2, or they're just going to go to PC, where they don't have to worry about having to spend $700 on a brand new console. And that's the other thing. It's that if Sony had come out and been like, okay, we understand that, gamers are having a hard time affording shit because everyone's broke, we're going to go and launch this at like $600, maybe $650, we're going to cut people a bone, would have been okay. They didn't do that. They instead launched something at $700, and the only benefit that I can really say that you're going to get out of this is you could get a little bit better graphics at a higher frame rate. PlayStation fanboys are going to be defending this until the days that they die, thinking that Sony never does anything wrong. It's always the critics that are at fault, and it's not true. Because for $700, granted, if you don't have a PlayStation 5, you're probably not going to be buying this. So if you probably already have a PlayStation 5, so you've got to bank on selling your PlayStation 5, which maybe you can get like $200 to $300 for it used. I honestly don't know what they go for, like on the third hand or second hand market. But even assuming you could get like $200 to $300 for it, and you don't want to buy the separate disk drive, which I think is stupid that you have to spend it's $800 to get the console with the disk drive. Assuming that you can get $200 to $300 for a PlayStation 5, whether it's the original or the Slim, you're still looking at spending about $500, and the graphical improvements are not as important as people, especially the fanboys, think that they are. Guys, it's cool that you can get some ray tracing now on some games at 60 FPS. That's cool. But that's not where a majority of gamers want improvements. Most gamers, if you ask them, hey, you have an option. You can either get 60 FPS with advanced ray tracing, finer detail, even better resolution, or where I think most people would want to go, you can get those same quality of life improvements at guaranteed 60 FPS or 120 FPS. 99% of gamers would want either more consistently 60 FPS or 120 FPS. I'm just going to be honest. That's where gamers would go. After a certain point in time, you cannot notice detail in an moving picture. You can't. And if you're noticing that content, you're not paying attention to the story of the game. Gamers, look, I'm not a guy that's going to benefit from 120 FPS. I don't have a TV that has 120. I don't have a computer monitor with 120. But I have seen phones that have 120. And when you have content on a phone that's 120, whether it's, movies or TV shows or even God, what was the one game I played? Dead Cells. Dead Cells has, I think on their Android, it might also be on iOS, where they give you 120 FPS. When you have that, and you've got those higher frame rates, that's what gamers will notice 99% of the time. Granted, up until the point where I think you're at like 144 or like 160 hertz, that's when it starts to become less noticeable. But that's what I would have rather have seen from a PS5 Pro, to be honest. I would have rather have seen, with this larger GPU that we're continuing to tout like it's a big dick, now any game that comes to the console will have, the same graphic quality, but, 60 FPS is the new minimum instead of 30. Gamers will, instead of having to choose to go from 30 to 60, could choose to go from 60 to 120. I think that would have been a better choice. And to be honest, I would have also rather have seen like an uncapped frame rate for some games, because I think some games on PlayStation 5 don't take full advantage of the hardware and probably could have an uncapped frame rate. It's possible. They have them on PC. And if we're going to keep pushing PC specs on consoles, why don't we push that? Oh, it's probably because, we want to push this narrative with AI. That was the other big thing that they were touting for the PS5 Pro. They're essentially bringing in their own version of DLSR. I think it's FSR, basically what NVIDIA and AMD use for like using AI to enhance pictures and frame rates. It's likely believed that the Switch 2, when it launches probably next March, they're believing that we'll have it baked in to basically improve frame rates and visual quality without having as powerful hardware. So really, there's not a lot to buy or not a lot of benefits to get from this. And when you're looking at maybe getting this for $500, if you're lucky enough to be able to resell a PlayStation 5, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to sell well. So then why did you bother spending so much R&D coming out with it? We're already halfway into the console generation for PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles. There's already people questioning what we're going to get in the next console. And while I understand that a lot of people are saying, oh, this is the GTA 6 machine. This is really just for like GTA 6 and like, the next Death Stranding game or whatever. And it's like, okay, then why am I expected to buy it now when GTA 6 is not going to come out until next year at the earliest? And personally, I think that it's likely that GTA 6, if it's going to come out next year, it's like maybe going to be a November game. I have high confidence that they're going to delay it to 2026, but that's for a whole separate conversation. Why am I expected to buy this now? You already have the superior console. You have the console that has the most exclusives, I would say. Although I have reason to believe that Xbox might turn that around in the next year or two. They've got some cool exclusives coming out to the platform, especially with their Activision buyout deal. But I don't see the purpose. And then when you factor in all of the live service games that they're throwing out, like Concord, like Helldivers, and granted, Helldivers was a good game, but Concord sucked. I played Concord. I played a demo of it, and it was horrible. Why do you think people are going to go and spend $700 on this? It doesn't make sense. Especially when, guys, for a market that is pushing this narrative of digital gaming, I've seen so many people complain that there's no disk drive, and it makes my heart beat knowing that I'm not the only one upset that there's no disk drive. It's like, okay, I understand that we're going to a more digital market, but I'm going to stick it out and buy disc games literally until there is nothing physical. I hate an all-digital future. I want there to be a choice. It's not that expensive to put a fucking disk drive on a console. God forbid. So, I don't know. I know I've been rambling about this, and I kind of been restating similar points now for a while, but I wanted this conversation to be raw thoughts and not just me trying to put thoughts on paper, which was where I was going originally with this conversation. Very rarely do I get this heated and debatable on something, but I really think that this console was maybe $600 worth of like goods. It's a marginal increase in power, despite what the Sony fanboys are going to say. It's a marginal increase, and other than the 2 terabytes of SSD space, which is nice, but considering that you can just go and get an internal drive on your current model, it's not really that big of a deal, and we're already so accustomed to just deleting games and reinstalling them when, we want to play them again. I don't see that as a valid argument for this. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Am I the only one that kind of has this controversial of a thought? Am I with a group of people that agrees? I know that there's some people on Twitter that are complaining, but I feel like they're kind of just how do I put it? beating the dead horse while it's down and just saying, oh yeah, no, it sucks. And, you know, these are probably going to be some of the same people that will just end up buying it and dropping $700. Oh, and that's the other thing. I don't fucking care about inflation numbers. I know people were talking about this on Twitter. I don't care about inflation numbers because guess what? The PlayStation 5, you know, with it counted for inflation comparing to the PS4, you know, obviously is a deal because the PS4, I guess, was like $500 something factoring in for inflation. But the PS4 Pro was just under $600 factoring in for inflation. I think it was like $594 or like just over $600 or something. I forget the official statistic. So just note, fucking inflationary numbers don't matter in this conversation. But yeah, no, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the matter. I hope that something reverses their decision on this. I know that they can't really do a whole lot about the disk drive, but for the love of Christ, just throw in the fucking stand. Stop trying to nickel and dime everyone just for a stupid piece of plastic to stand it up. I mean, I know that come next year they'll decrease the price. They'll have to. They want investors to see that this thing will sell and that they're not wasting their money. But I don't know. If you guys liked the video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't like it, by all means, hit the dislike button. I don't care. Just interact with the video. Help show the YouTube algorithm that you actually cared about or didn't care about the content. Whatever. Help me get more views. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the video. Do you agree, disagree, whatever. This will be the first video that I will be using gameplay footage of to kind of make my conversation, I guess, more engaging. I heard a lot of people online telling me that I should look into doing this, and some of my friends said that it might make my videos more interesting. If you could, like, watch something while you listen to me ramble for however long I'm talking. I've been trying to record now for like 3 hours to try and get some gameplay footage, and I was like an hour into God of War, my first playthrough of God of War, and I realized that OBS had crashed. So now I've started God of War, and I don't have any footage. So I honestly haven't even gotten to the point of knowing what the fuck I'm putting in for my footage. So it might just be some old stream footage, but moving forward, my idea is to have specific gameplay of like maybe a topic relating to what I'm talking about. Like this will probably be Spider-Man footage since it's a PlayStation game, kind of along those lines, or it might just be random footage from a game that I'm playing with a friend one day. I don't know. If you guys like it, also let me know. I'm trying to make these videos more enjoyable, and this is like the closest thing that I've found that I think might work. So yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening to me ramble for almost a half an hour. I know that I talked and restated points many times, but I do appreciate everyone sticking through to the end. I look forward to seeing you guys at the time that this is probably going up. This will probably be Thursday, and I'm pushing streams back a day. But I do look forward to seeing you guys either tonight when I stream or tomorrow when I stream. I'm thinking it's probably going to be tomorrow. So, yeah, thank you.